Hello, everyone. So, welcome to another webinar. This is a very interesting webinar that we have organized with Mr. Rajesh Kothari, who is the founder and managing director with Alpha Accurate Advisors. A lot of us, understand and know that people want to build wealth by investing in equities. However, one area which is seldom discussed is the exit strategy, because we know, of late there have been many examples of stocks, and it is always true that there are a lot of companies. We can take examples of Eicher Motors, Page Industries, Bajaj Finance, which investor would have maybe purchased, would have invested at some point of time, but maybe many would have exited early. At the same time, there are a lot of other examples of stocks like Yes Bank, DHFL, and likewise, where investors would have invested maybe, and they may not have exited, they would have waited too long. So this is one particular factor which is responsible for not letting the wealth creation to happen. So this is what we want to discuss today. What are the cues which determine for an investor to understand and plan a right exit strategy? So just to give you a disclaimer, we'll be discussing some of the stocks, some of the companies which speaker could be owning in their own portfolio or could be owning in the portfolio of their company for their investors. So, we'll be discussing some of those stocks, but this is just a point of disclaimer. Now, formal welcome to you, Mr. Kothari, to our webinar. So, PMS AIF World is one of the upcoming platforms which is helping investors do a lot of informed investment decisions. And we have been doing a lot of good work, especially over the last 60 days when everybody is locked in. And we have been running this series called COVID-19 to Wealth 20. Now, over to you. I would like you to first start by giving us some glimpses about your philosophy, about your company. Over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Kamal, for giving us an opportunity to be here on your webinar. And thank you all participants. I think most of us probably are still working from home, and people who are working in office like me, probably we are also in debate whether there will be second lockdown or not. But having said that, I think thanks once again to everyone. What I will do is that in next 1 or 2 minutes, I will quickly introduce myself as well as our firm and little bit about our investment philosophy, and then we move to the hardcore topic of this webinar. So I started Alpha Accurate Advisors in 2009. I'm into capital markets since 1994, and before starting Alpha Accurate PMS, I was fund manager with DSP BlackRock Mutual Fund, managing number of schemes. And at AAA PMS, we are a 10-year young firm now, and we strongly believe in delivering superior risk-adjusted returns. Let me share with you probably 1 or 2 important slides. Is it visible? Is it visible, Kamal? Good. So let me. So basically, our entire strategy is focused on how we can protect capital and then create wealth. And our protection of capital is primarily driven by approach of reducing risk through diversification, through staggered investment approach, and very important through exit strategy, which of course we are going to discuss in this webinar. When it comes to wealth creation, we have a very interesting 3M investment approach: market size, market share, and margin of safety. We invest in companies only if the size of opportunity is huge, which gives enough room to the company to keep investing and grabbing the more and more market share and swimming in a very big ocean rather than a small pond. But most important is our second M, which is market share. We invest in companies only if the company is top 5 in its own sector. We do not invest in 10th player and 9th player, because we believe that they are challengers, and challengers means burning more money. And of course, last time is nothing but margin of safety. There's nothing but about the valuations. We have a team of investment professionals who are passionate, who are dedicated, and of course, competent to make sure that we invest in the companies which are the best of the management, best of the governance, and best of the balance sheet, along with our 3M investment approach. Now, let me quickly move to the core hardcore topic of the today's session, that is why exit strategy is important. So Kamal, over to you. Kamal, you are not audible.
Yeah, sorry, it was on mute. So I was saying, we have done 12 webinars over the last 60 days, so almost 2 webinars every week, and we have invited, almost all the fund managers from the PMS and AIF industry. Everybody has given a lot of perspective on how to pick quality businesses. They have given perspective on investing for long term. They have given perspective to have an appetite for risk when investing in equity. So net, everybody talks about buy side. Everybody talks about, buy quality, and nobody has really discussed about the exit strategy. So as I was reading your PPT also, your first slide says protect capital and grow wealth. And also, you have also highlighted in your PPT the third point, in your 3M strategy as, exit strategy. So buy right, and maybe, exit right is what your strategy looks like. So hence, it will be very keen, and I'm very curious to understand from you, what are the cues that your firm and your team identifies, and what is your philosophy behind finding out the right exit strategy?
Well, Kamal, I think what is important is most investors, India is still a very nascent market. In 1992, Indian economy opened up, and from 2000, the mutual fund industry started. So we are still 20, 25-year young equity market. And being an emerging market, everybody generally believes that whatever you invest, you make money because the country is on a growth path. But actually, over a period of time, if you look at last 40 years, there are so many significant changes, not only in India, but also globally. When investors invest, money with any product, when they give money to us, we are trustee of their hard-earned money. And therefore, our mandate is not to deliver returns, but to deliver superior risk-adjusted returns. So that risk is something very, very important, that what kind of risk you are willing to take while generating your target returns. And therefore, it is very important that how we are going to reduce the risk. And when we talk about risk reduction, exit strategy is something very, very important to reduce the risk. If you look at Sensex, 75% of Sensex has changed in last 16 years. If you look at Dow Jones, same thing you would see. If you look at Dow Jones, not a single company is probably there compared to when the Dow Jones was formed. Let me share with you one quick slide. These are the companies which have exited in last 16 years from Sensex. If you look at 2001 to 2009, companies like MTNL, Castrol, NIIT, Ranbaxy, Satyam, Z, they moved out in 2009. And if you look at 2019, companies like Vail, DLF, Grasim, Sterlite, Tata Power, they all are part of Sensex, but they moved out in 2019. They are no more part of Sensex. And mind you, Kamal, all these companies are blue chip companies. So when investors see that, Rajesh, we are going to invest in blue chip, why don't we just buy and hold for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? It may work, it may not work, because all these companies are blue chip, and today they are no more part of Sensex. And therefore, it is very, very critical to ensure that You keep monitoring your portfolio company's fundamentals, the earnings growth drivers of this portfolio company, and make sure that whenever there are any changes in your underlying assumptions, you monitor and you exit if required. If you don't exit, then all your profits are on paper profits. And of course, you have a number of examples which we have already, I've given you one slide in which there are a number of examples, and you see what kind of wealth erosion has happened if a company, if a shareholder or an investor doesn't exit at right time.
Right. So we know that there have been a lot of other examples like Suzlon, Unitech and all. But we would like to understand what are the triggers that you look at while deciding your exit.
So, well, there are 3 or 4 important things which determines when you want to exit. The first important thing is, what are the change in underlying business environment? Second important is, what is the change in underlying balance sheet risk? Third important is, what are the valuations? And fourth, most importantly, what is the governance risk? And is there a change in governance risk? Based on these 4 factors, you need to evaluate your exit strategy.
Right. So let us take all these factors one by one, starting from the change in the business environment. So I remember when we did event in Mumbai with you, you had highlighted VUCA as one of the elements which you kind of follow. So which as you had explained, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So in that context, I would like you to kind of highlight, what is it that you see in the changing business environment and connecting that to the exit strategy.
So, as I said, that first thing, so let's go one by one to make sure that investor, the viewer understands it better. The first thing is, like I said, change in business environment. Generally speaking, during last 10, 20 years, when I meet investors, I met many investors who says that, Rajesh, I'm expecting very moderate returns, 8, 9, 10% kind of returns. And if I hold on to that company, which is a defensive company or company which is into the defensive sector, can I make reasonable money if I hold it for 5, 10 years? And the sectors, for example, power sector. But look at last 10 years. If you would have invested in a company, number 1 company in the sector, NTPC, then probably in last 10 years, NTPC has given flat returns, including dividend. NTPC has delivered 0% compounded returns, despite the company is number 1 company in the sector, and despite the sector is defensive, but it has not delivered any returns. So every industry has a business cycle, and you need to make sure that if there is any change in underlying environment, then there'll be change in your earnings growth assumptions. Let me give you another example. For example, in 2015, late 2015, we were holding good part of our portfolio in pharmaceutical sector. But then in 2015 and or early 2016, we made entire sector exposure 0 in our portfolio, almost 0, because we could see number of headwinds to the sector. Like, for example, the pricing pressure in US markets. For example, the significant increase in compliance cost because of US FDA new regulations, the stricter compliance. And if you look at in 3.5, 4 years, most of the pharmaceutical companies' legal cost has almost doubled from roughly 300, 350 crores to 500, 600, 700 crores. You look at any company, most of these companies. And therefore, the margins decline because of all these factors put together has resulted into margins declining from 25% plus to 15%. And mind you, people are considering pharmaceutical as a safe sector, as a defensive sector. But the earnings growth became negative in last 3.5, 4 years. So whenever there is any significant change in business environment, maybe because of competition, maybe because of regulation, maybe because of technology, then you need to make sure that you exit from such sector.
Sure. So, putting myself in the investor's shoes, I think investors are more keen at this juncture to understand with examples, when you have highlighted the first point, which is change in business environment. So let us, consider today's context, right? Can you give some examples, maybe, from as cues from the history, where, since you talked about sectors, where maybe competition emerged in particular sector, and that led to change in business environment, and it was the right signal for one to have exited from a particular company, right? So that from those cues one can correlate and take informed decision in the current context. And if you can maybe pick out some example from the current context, that will be most apt.
Okay, so so as I said, I already giving you the drivers, the parameters which investor needs to monitor. Say for example, number one, if there is a alternate technology which is available to your existing business, when you are looking at your particular stock, if the technology changes or if there is a significant change in business model, then company's current business model can be at risk. Secondly, I talked about if there is a change in business environment, for example, significantly increase the compliance cost, whether if your firm is not prepared, then there can be significant increase in such cost and therefore a decrease in margins. Third important I said is the earnings growth driver. What are the earnings growth driver and are they on a threat or not? Because if earnings growth driver is on threat, then you will not get your desired, and you will get hit on both valuation as well as earnings growth, because in long term market is nothing but mirror of earnings growth. Let me give an example. I can give a little bit past example because these are very, very important insights to ensure that you don't get biased towards any company or towards any sector. Generally speaking, investors always believe that FMCG is one of the safest sector to invest in. It's very, very defensive sector, and you get a GDP plus some growth, nominal GDP plus growth in revenue terms. But India's biggest FMCG company has delivered 0% revenue growth from 1999 to 2006. India's second largest FMCG company has delivered single digit, very low single digit earnings growth in last 10 years. So it is not about that you decide today and that's it for next 5 years. No, you have to monitor it every day. Say for example, NBFC, the small NBFCs, they are going to be under significant threat as we move forward over next 3, 4, 5 years. Small real estate companies, they are going to be under significant pressure because of their balance sheet, because they do not have availability of credit. They'll be under significant stress. I think, probably 3, 4, 5 years down the line, there are many more companies which today are at probably stock price, if it is rupees 100, it may become rupees 10 over next 4 years. And of course, there are many companies where stock price, if it is 100, will also move to rupees 1,000 in next 3, 4, 5, 10 years. So in any sector, whether it is NBFC, whether it is a real estate, whether it is a sector where there is a more number of players, and if the company which you are holding is number 11 or number 12 or number 13, I think it's going to be very, very tough time for such firms.
Right. So very rightly put. So, the second factor that you had highlighted was corporate governance, and last 2, 3 years have, shown the importance of this factor too much. Many, investors or many fund managers who may have ignored this factor have been, kind of have to face this very badly, right? So in last 2 3 years, we have a lot of examples. So how to otherwise ultimately understand, in advance that there are corporate governance issues? What are the cues that you look for to really predict and understand that yes, there is an issue. There is an issue with regards to corporate governance.
Well, I think again, very good question. So Kamal, I will not give points which probably everybody knows on the street, including your viewers. But let me tell you something which probably viewers may not be knowing much. So everybody knows you should not buy a company with a bad management and bad governance. But probably there are only many few are aware that even the large, big multinational companies can have a big corporate governance issues. Correct? So for example, when you look at asking me that kind of a keys or kind of factors what you monitor, if a company sets up its 100% subsidiary in India, then what is going to be the transfer pricing between listed company and 100% subsidiary? And of course, there is one very large capital goods company, I do not want to name it, which is a very big 100% subsidiary in India, and most of the new business is getting moved from its 100% subsidiary, resulting in almost zero growth from last 3, 4, 5 years, or a very flattish growth from last 3, 4, 5 years. So change in royalty, setting up 100% subsidiary, these 2, 3 factors are very, very important. If you look at from the intelligence perspective, there are many promoters in India, even in domestic side as well as global. They have more than one businesses. At times, there are businesses which are out of listed company, and therefore you need to be very careful that what is the total debt at the promoter level. And of course, nobody knows this number because it is not available in the listed company balance sheet. And as a result, you have seen in last 12, 18 months, there are many promoters, they have to sell their shares in open market because there was a loan against shares in the form of pledge, because they were outside listed company investment into real estate or hotels or any other business. Fourth most important, from governance perspective, you can also check how many times the auditors are changing, whether they are changing or not. Is it a rotation basis or is it one auditor doing for last 10 years? You can check in terms of the independent board, what is the attendance ratio, and it gets disclosed in annual report, and it gives you at times many good insights. You can look at, there are many companies, when you open the balance sheet, and probably which we'll cover during the, the balance sheet risk, we'll talk more about it, but it gets reflected in number of such parameters. Promoter's pledge is something which is very, very important. A company which frequently comes out with a offer for sale or QIP or raising money through IPO or through rights, frequently every 2 years, every 2.5, 3 years, it requires a caution. So such are the factors which investors can monitor, and all these are public information. And at that point of time, you need to be cautious. You need to revisit your fundamentals and take the call accordingly.
Yeah, the most recent example, is Yes Bank, where I remember, it has been coming with QIPs maybe every second year. So now coming to the balance sheet factors that you highlighted that you would like to cover. So specifically, what are the elements which we can understand from the balance sheet, which kind of could give cues on possible corporate governance issues coming up?
So Kamal, I always say that numbers कभी झूठ नहीं बोलता, numbers होते हैं, and numbers one should always respect, one should always go in depth while doing the balance sheet. I already gave you 1 or 2 things. For example, independent directors attendance, which gets reflected in your annual report. The transfer pricing, intergroup related party transactions gets reflected in annual report. For example, when I was doing research on one of the technology company, I looked at their number of employees and then I looked at their employee cost. It was not matching because employee cost was negligible compared to number of employees. So when you look at employee cost as a percentage of revenue, it gets visible. When you compare company A versus company B and company C, it gets better and clearer to you that whether such numbers are believable or not believable. And lastly, most importantly, the capital allocation. And this is something which is very, very important, because I have seen number of times where company reports good return on net worth, good return on capital employed, but their cash flow is missing. I've also seen number of times in balance sheet, in profit and loss account, you get item called tax, income tax. But when you look at cash flow, that item of tax paid is not matching with what you can see in profit and loss account income tax. It means company has not paid the amount to which they are reflected in P&L. And income tax is something very, very important indicator which can give you true color of actual profit before tax. So this is again one more important item. And as I said lastly, the capital allocation. A company which keeps doing significant capex year after year after year, but not getting translated into revenue, or doing capex higher than the competitor for the same amount of capacity, you need to ask the question that why it is so. Because it's possible that that capex figure probably is inflated number, and that balance sheet is therefore may not be believable, or you need a detailed scrutiny on that number. And these are something very easy tools for any investor to do the analysis.
Subsequent question that comes to my mind is that how would one do this on a total portfolio? So somebody like you, for you to do this on daily basis, right, for on the overall portfolio with maybe 8 to 10 sectors, maybe 30 to 35 companies, right, it would be a very difficult task. How do you manage this all?
So for a retail investor, of course, it's very difficult. But from our perspective, of course, we have an experience. We have an experienced team of investment professionals, and we breathe in, every day. Equity is like a breath, so we breathe our portfolio companies. You need a constant monitoring of portfolio companies. You need to make sure that it is a 24/7 kind of a monitoring, because in this VUCA world, as you rightly mentioned in your opening remark, the world keeps changing. But also very important is a lot of things you can control by investing into the right companies. So at entry level itself, you try to put the filters so strict, so hard that it meets your requirements. And therefore the chances that that portfolio company does something wrong, probably you are reducing to a great extent. And that is the reason why in my opening remark, I talked about 3M approach. And where I said that we invest in companies, provided the company is top 3 or top 5 in its own sector. Now, this is something very, very big, because post-COVID, I think industry is going to consolidate. And that is the reason why on one hand, people are not positive on economy, but markets are moving up. Because market, the winners, that winner basket is going to reduce, it's going to shrink because of many players which may not sustain this kind of a downturn of last 3.5, 4 years. And therefore, if you invest in a leader, the leader will further become bigger, and it will get probably and will win more market share. And probably that will help the leader to continue to improve not only margins and profitability, but also return on net worth and return on capital employed. So coming back to your question, in a very shortly, what you buy is equally important, and then keep monitoring, the portfolio companies. And it is a strong due diligence capabilities which is important. You require 360-degree due diligence: customer, supplier, competitor, banker, from all possible, what I would say, the value chain. You need to keep checking whether everything is going right, or is there any puncture in your earnings growth driver.
Right. But very strangely, I was also expecting you to talk about valuations. Isn't valuation an important factor to understand and maybe incorporate while one is planning one's exit strategy? And how does Alpha Accurate and your philosophy go about it?
No, absolutely, valuation plays very critical role. So as I said, we exit if our target valuations are met, or we do rebalancing. So what we do is that, for example, if stock price is trading at 20 times price to earning multiple, and if we believe that stock can go to 30 times price to earning multiple, and if the stock reaches to that multiple, either we exit fully or we do portfolio rebalancing. So at any point of time, we make sure that a particular stock weightage never cross the particular weight we have decided at our portfolio level. So there is a auto rebalancing which works, and therefore you do not get carried away by your own conviction that इसमें कुछ खराब हो ही नहीं सकता, and then it becomes balloon, and suppose something goes wrong, you'll be late in probably in your action. So it is important to make that very strong risk management, and that is the reason why we have a diversification, and that is the reason why we invest across sectors, across companies, across market cap, and in each of our business company which we own, they have a multiple sub business segments, and therefore to that extent we further mitigate the risk. So valuations are important, and we do rebalancing of the portfolio whenever it crosses a particular target valuation.
Right. So now, let me come to the most practical question. So if, we have an audience of informed investors as well as advisors, so who are aware more or less that, one should have leaders of the particular product category or an industry. So assume someone has a portfolio which has leaders from auto, leaders from banking, leaders from NBFCs, leaders from essentials, leaders from discretionary staples, right? So this is the kind of a portfolio, and portfolio comprises of 25 stocks. So, after having seen the unprecedented environment in March and then sharp recovery in April, and then, range bound months in the month of for May, and then some more recovery in June, we are kind of now only 10%, lower from the all-time highs that we saw in the month of February. So what are your views if someone is holding such a portfolio, which are quality businesses, leaders, right? Should one plan an exit strategy from such names, or one should invest more, in context of the overall, market environment, one, and in the context of some of these businesses?
So, well, I think, first most important is what is your investment horizon? And generally equity means minimum 5 years target time horizon. And if you have a time of 5 years horizon, CS market may do some correction in between. Is like a normal market. It will do some correction here and there, which is possible. It may even come down by 10, 15%. Your stock prices may come down by 10, 20%, which is possible. But if there is no change in underlying firm value, because I think, the street has got overhyped on COVID-19 concern. Actually, it doesn't change the firm value in the long term. It changes the firm value only for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. It doesn't change beyond. So everybody knows that FY21 is going to be a bad year, and it is extremely hard to predict how it is going to be FY21. But FY22, we are back to normal. And you have invested in a portfolio company for 5 years. And therefore, you should not exit just because stock price has gone down first 35% and now it has gone up 25%. It doesn't move a needle when you have a 5-year holding period. So you should not exit if you believe that there are no changes to your underlying investment thesis.
Right. So owing to, one's maybe mistake, or, one got tempted, if someone has, for example, exited a stock. So it could be an example of, for example, Reliance Industries, right? So, we know that a lot of news started coming in about Reliance Industries raising a lot of private equity funding, from various sources in the month of May and June. But the stock went down from 1600 levels to 950 levels and had recovered to 1400 levels. A lot of investors have been asking this question while, we were interacting, that for, this particular stock, they would have exited at 1300, 1400. And likewise, there could be a lot of other stocks which would have shown some recovery and may not have, gone up for many years. Like Reliance Industries was kind of not performing at all for last 10 years. And then in 2017, it did show great performance. And also in last 1 year, it did show great performance. So if someone has exited a particular stock, maybe not particularly about Reliance, but is it a good strategy to again enter, if the understanding is there, and how should one decide that, or one should stay away?
No, so just like how you do exit, you do entry, correct? Just like if the company's underlying business driver changes from good to bad in your assumption, you need to exit. Similarly, if you believe that any company's underlying earnings driver is changing from bad to good or good to better, and if the valuations are comfortable, and if you have a 5 years time horizon, you should buy such companies, correct? Because 75% of Sensex companies have changed. It means they are replaced by the new names. Am I right? So that means that you need to exit bad businesses which you believe will not deliver over next 3, 4, 5 years, and you should buy the businesses which you think will be deliver over next 3, 4, 5 years. And let's assume hypothetically, even if you would have exited in between because you thought company is not going to do well, and then after 1 year you believe that now company is going to do well, you can buy it again. There is no harm. It is not that just because you exited, you should not buy it back. You can always buy it back because your assumptions have changed. So say for example, same example of pharmaceutical sector. We started buying in month of August, September, and right now we are holding around probably 11 to 13% of our portfolio in pharma, which became zero. It was 12, 13% in till 15, it became zero, and in 19 August, and currently we are already at 12, 13% in pharma. So you need to monitor. What I'm saying is, I keep repeating, repeatedly I'm mentioning that word. Monitor your earnings growth drivers of that sector, of that firms, and if there is a change in it, if it is turning from bad to good, you need to invest, and if it is changing from good to bad, you need to divest.
Right. So what should be the frequency of this, monitoring?
Monitoring is 24/7. It doesn't work. Say, if you say, I will monitor every quarter, but if a development comes in between, development is not going to wait. Technology is not going to wait, correct? Sooner you act, better it is. That doesn't mean you buy today, sell tomorrow. Definitely not. But monitoring is 24/7 job. And because that monitoring will lead you to ask more intelligent questions, to do another round of due diligence, that what is the underlying change. Let me give an example. Say for example, in the renewable energy space, there are only 3 players. One, of course, Gamesa, which is a multinational company. One, of course, large Indian company, which is going through, bad phase. And one, of course, good company which got listed. I'm talking about 2015 environment. But then Sun Edison from USA, they came into wind energy. And for the first time, their bid was less than, that solar company bid was less than the wind. And that was the first alarm to an investor who has invested into the wind energy firm. And if you had not exited in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, the stock price then down by 75%. So Sun Edison came, they got the project at a price less than wind project. And that is the first alarm, because it means the competition is becoming extremely aggressive to make sure that they get the project at any price. So it is a 24/7 job.
Right. So like you had mentioned, the change in business environment is one of the first triggers to understand the exit strategy. So considering that in current context, right? So there have been very few gold finance companies which have been, rising, and which have been kind of flavor of the market. But at the same time, we know that government has allowed, RBI has allowed PSUs to also start, doing gold loans. So there is a change in business environment for these gold finance companies. So is it a signal? Does it imply something in this context?
Yes, and this is not something new. If you look at actually 4 years back, if you just take a drive on any of the Mumbai lanes, every cooperative bank has a hoarding that we do gold finance. See, something everybody thought is the easiest thing to do in life, but actually, and then they lended, and then it turned into NPA. So lending is the easiest business in the world. I mean, you can lend to anybody. I mean, if you have money in your pocket. But recovering that money at right time with the right yield is not everybody's cup of tea. And that's why there is a difference in the risk management. Particularly in the lending business, one should not get carried away by growth. Anybody can grow the balance sheet by giving money. One should do detailed analysis and due diligence on the quality of that growth, and then the future NPAs based on past track record of that institute, whether it is a bank or whether it is NBFC. Lending, anybody can do. And time and again, we have seen it. Whenever there is an auto boom, every NBFC There are many big new NBFC, they enter into the field and they start, giving the two-wheeler loan and four-wheeler loans. And whenever market turns down, they get wiped out. Correct? So these are periodical phases. You get in the banking side as well, NBFC side as well. Everybody will enter into gold loans, and probably 90-95% of those lenders, those new players, they may not survive that through the cycle. Correct? And again, they will vanish. And the bank or the institute or NBFC, which is master in this business from last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they will continue to dominate the market as they've been doing from last so many years.
Right. So one of the last, questions that we will take pertains to the factor that all of us in general talk, but you did not cover that, which is quality of management, right? So this is a very subjective term which everybody shares as one of the factors in identifying the stock. So how do you determine whether the quality of management has deteriorated over a period of time, from earlier, and then does this also fall in your, I would say, spectrum of factors in terms of analyzing and deciding the exit strategy?
Yeah, of course. I think the management quality, the first thing, the starting point is management quality. But what we have done is a little bit differently to make sure that we don't get carried away by just looking at quality of management. And therefore, we have put a strong filter of market share, the leadership character of that company, and it tells you everything. For example, if I tell you that the number one telecom player or number two telecom player, a company is number two in the country in telecom, it means management must have done something good. Otherwise, you cannot become number two. Correct? If I tell you that Maruti Suzuki is number one company in Indian passenger car industry, it tells you a lot about management. It means company has done something great in terms of products, in terms of technology, in terms of branding, in terms of distribution, in terms of the banking facilities, in terms of delivering value to stakeholders, in terms of their employer-employee relationship, in terms of their relationship with the supply chain, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, you cannot become number one in a country like India. Correct? So market share, it tells you a lot about management. And then when you buy that company or when you evaluate that company, you further go into the quality of management. The quality of management is best. That's why you are number one or number two or number three. Otherwise, you cannot be at that position. But then, whether it is professionalized or not, that is important. Do they have a group companies listed or unlisted? If unlisted, is there any conflict of interest? What is the second generation doing what kind of business? Whether they are out of this company or whether they are within the firm. If they are outside the firm, what business they are doing. Is there any capital allocation mismatch between A versus B? Whether the promoters are having diversified businesses and therefore are they allocating capital from the current business? So you link, basically it's a holistic approach. It is a complete approach where you look at market share on one hand, you look at the balance sheet on other hand, you look at governance at third hand, and you make a triangle. And it is that triangle which tells you everything, because it is so easy to tell anybody that buy the companies with the good management. I mean, what's big deal about it? Everybody tells the same thing. But how do you define the good management? In India, every entrepreneur has a story to talk about. And everybody wants to become 5, 10, 20, $100 billion over the next 5, 10 years. But the definition of good management comes out of the detailed analysis on this triangle. Your market leadership, your balance sheet, your governance. And there are a lot of intelligence factors, which I told you, like pledge of shares, diversification, conflict of interest, all these things put together, that decides should you invest into that company or not.
Right. So thank you so much, Rajesh. It has been really pleasure talking to you. We have heard a lot about buy right, sit tight, and we believe in that because if you have purchased right, obviously sitting for a long period of time is extremely important. But given that market environment is prone to a lot of disruptions, a lot of changes, and there have been instances of corporate governance issues coming out with maybe triple rated companies also, and we know that because of changing environment and competition, market leadership also changes. Hence, it is extremely important to buy right and exit right. And hence, in that regards, I think your views are extremely important. Once again, thank you very much for your views, and thank you viewers for watching this.